Hey, count out to the Geekcast. Welcome back. Today we are interviewing a writer, a colorist, who has worked in DC and has his independent comics as well. Um, but the most of all that recently dropped, and we're getting a part two, is Justice League versus Godzilla versus King Kong. And if you hadn't read that story, it's a phenomenal book. The story, the action, the fight scenes are phenomenal. Um, and Brian Buccellato has been in the industry for a good while now. And it's an honor to have him on to talk about his work and what he's working on currently. But before we get him in the room, we're going to give a big shout out to our friends at Dragons Den Alamo Ranch. Without Dragons Den Alamo Ranch, we wouldn't be doing comic reviews and interviewing artists and writers. Um, if you play Pokemon, Magic, Warhammer, 40K, um, Pokemon, this is a place you want to go chill with your friends. You want to talk comics, you can come talk with us. Cool place to hang out. But of course, what you're here for is to talk to Brian. Let's get him in the room and talk about what he's working on. How's it going, Brian?
It's going well. Thank you for having me, man.
Oh, dude, thank you for coming on. I mean, your work has been killing it. I mean, for people who don't know, you're a big fan of Godzilla and King Kong.
I am. I am.
How did this come to pass? Did DC pitch it? Did you pitch it? What was the
No, this
process for
actually
this?
happened. It happened behind the scenes. Robert Napton, who runs the comic side at Legendary, went
Oh,
into
nice.
conversation with Ben Abernathy, who at the time was at DC, and they talked about doing a big team up, a big crossover, and I was just a lucky guy that they asked first if he wanted to do it, and of course I said hell yeah. I mean, why wouldn't I?
So
Well,
did they know you were a fan though, or no?
yeah, so I was also in a unique position to I've done work for both companies. Like I did some King Kong graphic novels. I've done like Detective Pikachu adaptation. I've done several things for Legendary, and I've known Robert for 25 years at least, probably going on 30. And so we've known each other for a long time, and I had my time at DC where I worked on like Flash and Injustice and Detective Comics and stuff. So I think I was uniquely qualified because I had been in both worlds. So uh, it was probably an easy ask, and yeah, I just was the lucky one. So
Well, I mean, okay, guys, Injustice, hell of a game. The books were awesome. I mean, of course, 52 Flash, that was a cool series that y'all did as well with you and Francis. Um, but even that though, I mean, writing Injustice and going from that and transitioning to this. I mean, in other interviews you've talked that, when you first start off, with doing a colorist and stuff like that, did did you really think this is where you were gonna go? Or was it kind of in the back burner in your head or
I mean, to be honest, uh, I colored to pay the bills. I raised a son, got married and divorced. So I had a kid, got married, got divorced in that order. The whole time, I'm supporting myself and the family with coloring comic books. But like my passion for writing sort of predates my comic book stuff. So. Um, I think working in comics sort of opened up like this dormant creative side of me in the 90s. And so I decided I wanted to like write screenplays and make movies. So I taught myself how to write, just writing bad, screenplays like one after another, on my own time in between like, family stuff and working. I taught myself how to write probably over the course of like 6 or 7 years. And at
wow.
some point, my passions met my skills, and that's when writing opportunities happened. And the game changer was Francis. I mean, I've got this tattoo of Francis's Flash. Oh, wait, Francis, this one's King Kong.
Oh,
Um, this one is Flash. Is Francis's artwork.
wow.
because in a very large degree, I owe my writing career to him because when the New 52 happened, I was coloring his work, and we were like, homies, and they asked him if he wanted to write and draw Flash by himself.
Wow.
And since I was the his colorist, and he knew that I had this background in writing, and he had never professionally written anything either, he asked if I would write it with him, and so that kind of changed the game for me.
Wow.
Uh, and then a screenplay I wrote in 2006 that nobody would read. When I became the Flash writer, got me reps like in 2011 or 12. So it was like a long process, but
Wow.
if you stick to your passion and you're realistic about your abilities and your work ethic, your time can come whenever. I didn't get my writing break till I was, I think, 39 or 40. So
Wow. So you didn't go to school for it. Did you like get books, like from Barnes and Nobles that help you kind of like to learn how to do the screenwriting thing? And
yeah,
then you just kind of practice from there? Or like, because I mean, I've wanted to write. What doesn't help me is I'm kind of a little bit dyslexic as well,
sure.
but I have the ideas for stuff, but that's what holds me back. But like when you have a great imagination, that helps a lot to create
Yeah,
and invent characters.
honestly, I think imagination is not as important as the discipline to do
Oh,
the thing. I think a lot of people, especially like nerds, and geeks are so exposed to like all this cool stuff, and they usually nerds are creative and smart, and maybe a little bit awkward, a little bit sort of like introverted like me.
yeah.
So you spend a lot of time in your head, and so naturally you're going to have ideas, and some people have really good ideas, but ideas just an idea until you do something with it. So
Yeah.
for me, it was about like reading as many books on screenwriting as I could. Save
Wow.
the Cat and Story by Robert McKee, and The Hero's Journey. All those things, um, and that was driving me to try to do the thing. And then I think the ability to recognize um, that the stuff I was doing, what was wrong with it, you know, and why it sucked, allowed me to improve. Like if,
Yeah.
if you think that the stuff that you do is great, you don't evolve, right? So you always have to be able to look at your stuff with a critical eye. And I think I was fortunate that I had the eye. That even though when I started out, I wasn't good enough, I understood that, and so I was able to get better.
Wow. Okay, so getting back, getting off track on that, but getting back to your getting the story, when they told you this and they said, okay, you're going to write this, did you already automatically have an idea in your head that okay, this is my pitch, this is
Yeah.
what I want to do? So how did it go? I mean, what was the first thing that you?
Well, I mean, some things just like are no brainers. You're like, okay, if you get DC versus Legendary, you're going to have Superman fight Godzilla. That's just
Yeah,
that's everyone want. That's the battle. That's the headliner. Everyone wants to see that. That's the Mike Tyson fight. So like that one, you already know. And then there's certain things like that. Just if you have Green Arrow, I'm going to put him on Skull Island, Green Arrow, like that thing, sells itself. Uh, Supergirl, Kong, the beautiful blonde, but
yeah.
the power dynamic is different in this case. Like, so there's some things that are just really fun, and like were very easy, like Lex Luthor, like. If you're writing a comic in this world, what do you think Lex Luthor would do? Of course he's going to try and rebuild Mechagodzilla. Like, why wouldn't he?
Yeah.
So
I
it's
mean, dude, I was okay. You had Black Canary in here, and the way you utilized her. Um, okay, spoilers, guys. If you haven't read this, you need to go stop, go read it, come back. Okay, when when Godzilla, and Superman fight, and they think Superman's dead, and that's where they leave you hanging, and you're like, what the? And then you have to wait till the next issue. I mean, it was mind blowing.
his fate is left up in the air for a few issues. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, like any savvy comic book reader knows that, like, I'm not killing off Superman in issue 2. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
you want the emotion to feel real and to feel authentic, but like every savvy comic person is going to
No,
know he's
but you
coming
did
back.
it great
You know?
because you had even the team was like, what? Like they were shocked. Like they weren't. Um, they're like, no, that can't be. It was just like the way you wrote that in there, because they're like, what? Like, I don't know, just the way seeing the reactions on the artist, the way the artist portrayed the characters' faces, and the way you just had the pages on the board.
Yeah.
It was just perfect, and I
Christian
was
is
like,
an awesome artist. He's awesome. He's knocked it out of the park.
oh yeah. I mean, and then okay, this is what got me too. I couldn't get all the covers, and they had so many great covers for like this one right here. Oh, that was beautiful. Uh I was just like, wow. So how are you gonna top it off? I mean,
Well, I mean, um, there's certain things that are different, right, this time around.
yeah.
In the sequel, they're going to the legendary Earth, so that opens up different opportunities because you've got Hollow Earth and you've got Titans that we didn't see in the first series.
Oh.
So a bit of a spoiler. It kind of takes within the legendary sort of canon. It takes place after um, King of the Monsters. No, right before King of the Monsters.
Oh.
So it's on a different timeline than the films. Obviously this is Elseworlds anyway, so it's not like it's canon
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the movies. But that's where our entry point. So, the cool thing about that is that gives us the opportunity to sort of debut Ghidorah and Rodan and Mothra. So those are the three big. That right there is something very different from the original series.
Wow. Okay, and then okay, I'm all geeking out here, but the whole thing that happens, of course, that we see, not just that you, because most IPs that they're like, okay, you can't use this, you can't use that,
Sure,
but you literally had things from the movie that pop in the comic. You go back to Skull Island. I mean, you do.
sure,
I mean, I don't know. I was just, I guess, because I watched these movies and they were okay. Some people didn't like them. I enjoyed it. It was a
oh,
great movie.
yeah,
The cast they had in there, um, and the special effects, of course. Uh, but seeing that, the little things that you had put in there, little Easter egg stuff,
sure, sure.
that to me, when a writer does that, and the geek catches those little Easter eggs, it may not be big to other people, but for that geek who's a big fan of stuff, it means a lot. It shows that that writer is really putting his heart into this story.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've done a lot of IP work, and I think that one thing that look, no writer's perfect.
Yeah.
Like you don't know how many times I got tweets saying that I ruined Flash and this and
Yeah,
that.
that's true.
Whatever. Like everyone has their own agenda. Everyone has their own version of what they think is the right version. And
Yeah.
when you don't meet a geek's idea of what is the version, then they get upset, and I understand that. I do too. Like, but it took a long time for me to get over the fact that Wolverine was so tall in the movies. Like, it really bothered me.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is, right? But I think you owe it to the IP to understand it at least. You know what I mean? You can deviate from the established thing because nobody wants to read stories that already exist. So you
Yeah.
can deviate, you can change things, mix it up, make it, try to make it fresh, but you have to understand it. And I think you at least have to make the effort to understand the characters and what's come before. Even if you decide to switch it up, there has to be a reason why in your mind. And so I try to do that with everything and anytime I'm hired to write something that previously exists as IP, I try. I mean, no one's ever 100% successful, but at least I try.
No, and it's hard. I mean, in this industry, right, the way things are currently, that they start dogging stuff, and it to me, it's like, okay, look, if you go back in the day for comics, most people turn to comics to get away from reality. Back in high school, we're in a different world compared to back in the 90s and stuff like that. 90s it started blowing up, but prior to that, if people knew you were reading comics, they kind of kind of treated you a certain way. So you kind
Sure.
of had to keep it in the down low. But now it's like it's cool. You can go and talk amongst your friends, and the world is so different now. But at the same time, you have that fan base that they have to dog everything. Dude, it's entertainment to take you away from reality. Like,
Yeah, but you know what? I forgive fandom on some level because, like I said before, like a lot of people who are really passionate about whether it's Star Trek, Star Wars, DC,
yeah,
Marvel, Godzilla, whatever it is, the thing that is your thing, usually it happened at a sort of impressionable time in your life,
true.
and um, it was an escape from a world that may have been boring. It may have been traumatic. It may have just been, not interesting to real life, and whatever, IP and fandom, whatever, like uh, world that you're delving into, like that became your reality, your escape. And so, because of that, you have a sense of ownership of the thing. And that's
True.
what I think people who, I think both sides don't want to accept, is that, that sense of ownership is very emotional and tied to a very vulnerable place at, usually like preteen, teen, growing up. And
Yeah.
like, so it's like really, it's there in you. And so, sometimes you're not able to break out of that emotional feeling. And so that's when you get the fans who want to hate everything because, you know, they think that it sort of spits at, or like flies in the face of the one true version of the thing. But the thing is, there's many versions of everything. And,
True.
the reality is, if you don't like Barry Allen, you can go back and read the Wally West comics.
True.
You don't have to watch, the Snyder Superman, and I don't. Like, that's
Yeah.
not my Superman. I'll go back and watch Christopher Reeve Superman. And I'm obviously looking forward to the new one. I can't freaking wait. So, like, some people, there are the Snyder Bros out there that love that version of it. To them,
True.
that might be the one true version. That's also fine. There's there's no reason why we can't all just like what we like without shitting on everything. Like,
No, no, I agree with you 100%, man. That's how I see it. I just take it with a grain of salt, and I'm just like, that's your opinion. I like it. You may not like it, but
yeah,
hey, you know,
there's no battle to be fought.
yeah, exactly. No, I'm the same way. I mean, I have my Christopher Reeves Lois Lane Funko Pop right there. Technically, Reeves is my Superman, and and don't get me wrong, I love the other Supermans that came along. I mean, my biggest one I like, and I wish they would have casted him, was Tom Welling from Smallville.
Oh
The
yeah, I mean, the first 4 seasons of Smallville were gold, man.
Yeah, and Lex. I mean, Michael
That's
Rosenbaum is
my favorite version of Lex.
dude. Yes, and to this day, I think I've watched the 10 seasons, like over 15 times from beginning to end. It's
I
just
probably
because it was
watched
a
it 10 times. I probably watched it. I peter off towards the last 3 seasons, but like those first 4 or 5 seasons, I've watched at least 10 times, at least.
oh yeah, like you could just, even
Hmm.
though you already know what happens, you just catch yourself in front,
Yeah,
and that's me. To me, Tom Welling just portrayed him a certain way, and like you said, Lex, the way he portrayed Lex was just so unique,
yeah.
and
That
you know,
relationship, the two of them.
yeah, and that's the thing. It's to me that was, I wish they would, when they did the movie. I wish he would have done it, but I understand. He was kind of done 10 seasons. Hey, the cape and everything. People don't want to wear the cape, but you know, he to me, he's my you know Clark and Superman for right now, and I enjoyed the other ones that came along. But okay, you talked about the movie. Okay, I'm a dog person, and we're a cat. Our house is cats and dogs. Um,
I got a cat
but
on my lap, so there you
nice.
go.
Uh, so when I saw Crypto, that literally gave me goosebumps, and I was just like, okay, you got me.
I'm here for it. Uh,
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? I mean, are you okay as a comic book writer? Some people still read comics to stay in the industry. Are you still a comic book reader to read current
No,
stuff,
and
or
I think I'm so busy that I don't do much reading for entertainment in terms of comics. I just don't have the time. Like, a
oh
lot
yeah,
of deadlines, a lot of things I'm working on. I try to stay. I mean, I think the last thing I read the first 2 issues of Absolute Batman and the first issue of Absolute Superman, and I liked them. I
yeah,
thought they're really interesting takes. Like I was there for it. And at some point, I'll grab the trades and I'll sit down. I have a buddy, Ramon, who just every time a new issue comes out, he's like, "You gotta read it." Like this is like the best. He's super Superman fan. He has a lot of opinions about Superman, and so he loves the absolute version for sure.
Yeah, I want to look at the 5 issue series that they're going to do for the crypto run that they're going to make.
Sure.
I'm going to have to pick that one up just to read it just because I want to see, what's going to happen with crypto. But yeah, no, it's hard. There's so many good comics to read and it's kind of hard to keep up on all that stuff. Um, but the majority of the time, the artist, I feel when you have a good artist and writer, it helps as well because the interiors and the story, it just pops. Um, but when you were talking earlier that you have other comics that you're working on, not on top of part two of this, uh, what
Mhm.
other stuff do you have in the pipeline that you can talk about?
Sure. Last year, I had two books at Image, with Image. One with Kyle Higgins was called No One.
Oh,
That
nice.
is like a really it was sort of like The Wire meets like Daredevil or Batman. It's like
Nice.
a really dense sort of like crime story with a vigilante named No One. And with along with that, we did 10 podcast episodes that are in world. So two of the characters in the story are news reporters, and they do a podcast called "Who Is No One," trying to find out who is behind the mask. The big conceit of our story is that nobody knows who the vigilante no one is. So the
Oh, wow.
reader, like, you never get any privileged point of view of him. And so you read the issue and then you listen to the episode, and like they sort of recap the issue, and they talk about stuff and give new context. And so
Wow.
sort of like a multimedia thing where you know uh, there's like news articles that we wrote, and like you can really do like a super deep dive into it. And right
Oh,
now
wow.
we're working on writing the feature. We're doing a true crime superhero documentary that covers the events in the book. So that was the one big thing we did last year, and we're still working on moving forward. I
Wow.
also had a book called Midlife for How to Hero at 50.
Wow.
So it was about a firefighter whose dad was like this hero who died in the line of duty. So he becomes a firefighter because he wants to live up to his dad's legacy, but he's deathly afraid of fire. And so you fast forward 20 years, and he's basically been like this desk jockey who feels all the shame because he never lived up to his dad's sort of name. On his
Wow.
50th birthday, he finds out he's going to be a dad for the second time. He's got a 24-year-old son, just like me, and he's going to be a dad. Which at 50, I hadn't had a kid. Um, and so that sort of like shame drives him to an active heroism where he runs into a fire to save a dog, and he finds out he's fireproof.
Oh, dang.
So he decides to become a superhero at the age of 50. So that was 6 issues we did. It's collected. You can get it from Image. Um,
Nice.
and then obviously the sequel to Just League Godzilla Kong. I think that comes out in like July issue one, somewhere around there. July, I think, is when the first issue comes out. And I've got a book at Mad Cave that I can't give you any details on yet, but it'll be announced early May, and the
Oh,
first issue
nice.
will come out in August. And
Oh,
that one's like
sweet.
it's like a big action kind of thing with a very large cast. So it's sort of playing into what I've been doing, like with Injustice and with Just League versus Godzilla versus Kong, with like a lot of characters. So
Oh, nice.
yeah,
That's cool. I mean, now that you brought up the whole Smallville thing. So, what are your three top franchises that well, I guess I already know what the one is, King Kong Godzilla. Uh, so what are your franchises that you just like me, of course, you can tell in my background, I'm a big Harley Quinn fan
sure.
and a
Well, I can
Transformer
say
fan.
one right now. Let's see if I can. I don't even know if I can get this thing to turn. Let's see. Look at that one right there. That's the original
Oh,
Kong movie poster right there.
wow.
So that's a big one. I don't know if I have like a top three, because there's so much that I really truly love.
Yeah.
Like obviously I grew up at the age of Star Wars. I saw in the movie theaters in 1977 when it came out. I was young, and I remember it. I saw Superman in the theaters.
Wow.
Growing up reading comics, I was really into like X-Men. So like Byrne and Claremont, like that was my jam. Anything Frank Miller did back then, whether it was Daredevil or Batman. Um, you know, I would say it's all pretty diverse. Like there's Star Trek stuff I like Lord of the Rings. Like I read the books when I was a kid, and the movies were awesome. Like I don't know, man. There's just too much good stuff to be able to choose one thing and say that's your thing.
No, I'm right there with you. Like, I mean, if you see my stuff, I got a Buffy book back here. I got my Power Rangers, artwork there.
I'm a
I
little too
mean,
old for Power Rangers.
well, I was kind of right in the borderline.
Yeah,
But the reason why I got into Power Rangers was because of Godzilla. I always loved,
sure, like Ultraman and Jet Jaguar, all that kind of stuff.
yeah, exactly. Super Sentai is what really sold me on it,
Yeah.
and so I was like, oh, I love the, of course, we knew later that these were guys in suits fighting in model cities and stuff. It just was, even though we know it's cheesy, we liked it as kids. You know what I mean?
That's what we had also.
Yeah, that's true. With the four channels we had watching TV, until cable and
I think it
streaming.
was in New York. I grew up in New York. There was five because there was the three networks, and then there was like Channel 11 and Channel 9. Uh,
Oh, nice.
we had five
Oh,
channels.
okay. So I have to. So you grew up in New York. I know
Yeah,
you're probably okay. Yankees, Mets.
Yankees, all the way.
All
Yeah,
right, sweet.
yeah,
All right, yeah.
yeah.
People
Nine
give
club.
me crap because I wear this hat. I live in Texas. I get crap every time I wear this hat.
My dad lives in. My dad, he's passed away, but he lived in Texas for like 30 years. So like, I used to go visit him in Texas, and you know, we rooted the Rangers on, except when they played the Yankees.
Nice. Yeah, and I've been a Yankees fan for a good while, and I get crap all the time for it, but I don't let it get to me. Um, but no, that's the thing. Yeah, we have our vices that we love, and that's the thing. And when I found out, that we were getting a part two, and I was like, man, I got to get him on the podcast. I got to talk to him about, you know, what else is he going to be working on, and the story that you have. A lot of people, I mean, if you try to get an interview and look up interviews on you, there's not many interviews about you or from you on like YouTube and stuff. Um,
Yeah, you have to go back to like when I was doing the New 52 stuff. Like I kind of
yeah,
walked
that's the only thing
a
that you
while.
see. So and then I'm pretty sure because like you said, you're very um same way. I'm kind of the same way like you. I've always been a behind the scenes man for this stuff, and my boss, which is kind of to the geekcast, kind of goes, "You need to be more in front of the camera. You need to do this and that
Mhm.
because of all the comics." Yeah, it takes some work to get in front of the camera.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. It's just not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, that's true too. So for someone like you, I talked to Carlo Barberi. His routine is, he has a routine every day. He gets up, has his coffee, watch talk show, and then he goes to the gym. He sends his pencils, his pages to the editor, like, hey, what does this look like? And then since the time difference, he has to wait 2 hours before they tell him, okay, yes, you can continue drawing. Um, how does your process writing? Because writing is different. Because Erica Schultz too, she has a notebook she carries with her all the time because she says sometimes things will pop in her head. What is your process?
Yeah. So, what's interesting, and I've talked to other writers who this is similar to. Um, if you go back to how I taught myself how to write, it was on my own time.
Okay.
So, it was at night, it was early in the morning, in between, like, making my son's lunch and taking him to school and picking him up and doing after school things, and all the family stuff, and sitting down and coloring like 2 pages of comics a day.
Wow.
um, the one thing I learned how to do was to, one, my brain is always like going, right? So like I can't meditate. I don't remember my dreams. Like, my brain is always going, but I learned how to write in my head a lot. And
Oh
so
wow.
luckily I have a pretty good memory where, I do a lot while I'm doing busy work, while, walking the dog or taking a shower or washing dishes or, driving, to or from a place. So I do a lot of stuff in my head. And then when I get to my desk, I'm able to, write it down. I used to like send emails to myself and write notes, and I still will do it to some, to some extent, like write notes in my, on my app. But I almost never refer to them because I remember them. Like
Oh
it's almost
wow.
like the backup plan for me. It's like in case I forget, I can go back to it. But I generally will work a lot of the stuff out in my head, and then when I sit down, like it's a lot of the stuff is very, it's very well formed. I mean, things obviously nothing perfect, but enough for me to sit down and start, and doing the thing. And it cuts down on the time that I spend at the desk. I think because my brain is always in overdrive.
So you're pretty much kind of like me. Even though you could be working on this, you, your back of your head is doing something else still, even though you're actually doing stuff with your hands. And
Yeah, I mean, always accused of like having my head up my ass and not being present, but it's just part of my. It's part of the way I'm wired. I can't shut it off. I really can't.
yeah, no, no, I'm like you to a certain extent. Like I I can be at work and I'm like listening to a podcast, listening to other podcasts because I feel you can never get enough information.
Sure.
So I'm constantly taking in other stuff from other people's opinions and stuff to kind of say like, hey, and this is the thing about the industry that I see and what I try to bring to this podcast. You got people who interview these people, writers, actors, and everything, but they ask the 20 questions every time when they do media press. And
Mm,
you could tell the actors and writer that they kind of get tired of asking the same freaking questions.
sure.
And these people like, okay, if you're such a fan of this person, why are you asking the same question that just was asked like in 2 3 interviews ago? And that, for me, from the fan standpoint, I want to be a fan but ask questions that normally don't get asked. Like we talked about Smallville, we talked about the stuff that you like,
Sure.
because that's something that gets overlooked. So that's why I want people to know, like, hey, we're all the same. You know what I mean? We're all geeks and we all love the same stuff. Um, but that's what I try to bring to the table. And, you taking the time to come on the podcast to talk about, the Godzilla and stuff like that. So the when you did Flash and, Francis and you guys fed off each other, like how was those rooms? I mean, I don't think there were rooms. I think what y'all did more table read, or how did y'all do it?
Well, so Francis lives in Toronto and I live in Los Angeles. So
Wow.
we just did FaceTime. I'm pretty sure it was like FaceTime and what was that other before Zoom and oh man, before there was that one app,
Oh, Skype.
Skype. We spent like years on Skype. Um,
Wow.
and so that's how we did it. We talked and talked and talked, and at some point, like, I would take notes, and he would take notes, and then he'd break out the pencil and start like storyboarding, sort of the layouts for the pages, and um, we had sort of an interesting method because a lot of times, as we figured the story out, once we got to a certain point, he would start laying out the pages, and we would actually paste those layouts into our script, like our to get approval, which is a little bit backwards. So, I've only ever done that with Francis. But yeah, it was a blast. I mean, he's one of my closest friends in comics, and one day we'll collaborate again. Um, we mean to, but it's life. We're always so busy.
Yeah, I mean, in projects he's working on, plus you're working
Yeah,
on,
yeah,
and of course, if people didn't know, you also have written stuff for TV and movies as well.
yeah. I've got two movies that were produced. They're I think on Paramount Plus and sometimes on like I can't remember what other, but I know they're pretty much on Showtime, I think, and Paramount Plus. I was fortunate enough to have two scripts that I wrote get produced. They're decent. It was a real thrill to get produced, and you know, I, I think one thing about creative people with ambition is that you never are satisfied. So, like, I'm still working on the next thing and the next thing after that, and um, worked on an interactive series. Ended up being the lead writer on this thing that was kind of like a video game meets an animated series. It's called DC Heroes United, which I think is going on right now. It's like sort of like an app with like episodes, and there's like a game that you play.
Yeah.
Um, developed some stuff. I think about that, about people who have worked, you know, trying to do screenwriting, and even when you get paid, you can get paid to write something. It almost never gets made. Like the odds are very low. So that can be frustrating that you spend a lot of time developing something that no one ever gets to see. So I think the beautiful thing, or one of the beautiful things about comic books is that even if only 5, 10, 20,000 people are reading your comic, somebody's experiencing it. Even if it's only 100 people reading your comic, at least somebody is experiencing something that you are passionate enough about to like put down on paper and really put your heart and soul into. Um, and that's something that it always exists. It can never get taken away from you. I think I have two or three other creator-owned books from back then, and they exist. And some people really like them, and occasionally people are like, "Yeah, I read Sons of the Devil, or I read Cannibal, or I read Foster, or whatever." And um, it's nice that if you're a creative, you have some ego where you think your opinion matters. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you think you have something to say, or you can create something that other people should experience. And so it's nice that people get to experience it, and it's even nicer if they actually like it.
that's true. Yeah, no. Now, getting back, so do you ever listen to other podcasts?
I do. I mean, I go in little fits. Like I'll do like audiobooks, or I'll do podcasts. It all depends, like where my free time is and what I'm doing in life.
Well, no, the reason I was asking because I listen, of course, to Talkville, where it's Tom and Michael rewatching
Mhm.
Smallville, and they talk about the episodes and they get guests
Yeah,
on.
I've seen excerpts of it. I haven't actually. Is it worth?
Yes,
Is
it's
it
it's
worth?
it's great. It's a
Yeah.
great listen to. You can watch it too. But the reason why I was asking was because they have been talking about bringing Smallville back in animated series,
Oh, that would be cool.
and so I'm just the reason why I'm bringing this up is because what I was going to ask the question was if you had an opportunity to help write, because if you're a Smallville fan like me, and help write for the animated series, would that be something that you would be interested in doing to bring Smallville back to it'll be animation screen, but bring it back, but to actually write for the series?
Yeah, that would be an easy yes. I mean, no one's knocking on my door, so it's easier to say yes. But no, truly, um, it's a beloved series. Like my son, he was born in 2000, so he was kind of born. He kind of grew up watching it. Like I had like the box sets, and when he was old enough,
Nice.
he watched all the seasons, and we were talking. I would say maybe a couple of weeks ago, like we were reminiscing about it because like he makes music, and um, he was playing like a beat that he and his buddies put together that was sort of like uh, using beats from the soundtracks to Smallville.
Oh,
Mhm.
nice.
There was so many amazing songs, like so
Yeah.
many heartfelt, songs, and so like he was inspired. I mean, he does rap music,
Wow.
hip hop, whatever you call it. I'm old,
No, I'm right
but
there with you, bro. I'm an old man too, so trust me, I feel you.
but the fact that he could be inspired by like it's like the one song's like you're all I want, you're all you're everything.
Yes.
It's like they're super emotional. It's like I think it's like a prom, like he's thinking about going to prom with like Lana, or
Yes. Okay.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
super. And he I mean he used a version of that beat, and I was like wow. And so like even a kid who's 30 years younger than me, like can like it means something that show really hit.
No, I mean people who are catching it now, the younger generation are really loving that series. I mean, they get people that write in and will ask questions for them, and they're younger people that are watching the
Wow.
shows again, and they're listening to the podcast as they go along.
Well, that's
But
cool. I gotta
yeah,
check it
but
out.
when they yeah, so okay, so it got put on hold because of the whole DCU that's going on right now.
Hmm.
But when they were talking about it, that they were in talks about bringing it back, and I was so stoked because
Wow.
even though I'm 50, going to be 50,
Yeah.
um, I still watch cartoons, man. I don't care. You can tell me anything, but I still watch cartoons. You know, a lot of people didn't watch Star Wars Rebels because it was a cartoon, but I
Sure.
watched it when it first came out, and the
Yeah.
storyline was great. I mean, it's just the entertainment's there. But
Well,
yeah, if they bring it back in
I
cartoon
think,
form,
but I think animations are sort of getting elevated. You know, like if you go from like the Love and Robots, Love, Death and Robots, and
yeah,
I think it's the name of the show, or like Blue Eyed Samurai was just like changed the game, man. Like
yep.
you know,
Uh, it's crazy, dude. It's there's so much now that we didn't have when we were young, and now it's just like we're just basing in all the cool stuff. I mean, you know, the toys are better than what we had growing up. I can tell you that. Like even part of me catches myself like I want to buy that, but I don't need it.
no, I mean I used to buy stuff, but it just collects dust. I stopped collecting. The only thing I collect now is like lightsabers. When I go to
Uh,
Disney, like like I'll go and I'll buy a lightsaber. Like Disney's.
oh, okay. Well, since you bring that up,
Mhm.
they have Star Wars comics. Have you ever thought of writing a Star Wars comic?
I don't really know anyone on that side of things at Marvel. And uh, one thing about like if you don't already have the in,
Oh,
and let's say you ask or you inquire or whatever, you talk to some editors, if they're already not like if they're not already offering you the thing, then you have to pitch,
oh,
right?
okay, okay.
And like to me, the amount of work that you have to do to catch up on everything that's current in whatever world it is, it's a lot of work.
True.
And so, like, without any kind of reasonable expectation of getting a gig, I don't know that it's the best use of my time to spend researching all this stuff. Like, I've done it before, and it's always so annoying when like if like they go in another direction. It's like you spend all this time, researching X character and every nuance about this character, and then you know, okay, well, thanks for nothing. You don't get paid for that research. You don't get paid for the pitch. You don't get paid for any of that stuff. So, you know,
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
try to be a little more intentional with what I do with my time. So, like, if I'm going to pitch on something, it's because I feel like I have a reasonable shot at it. It doesn't mean I'll get it, but at least I need to have like at least feel like I'm not pitching into the wind because there's also like, and this happened to me like in the film side where like I got to pitch on stuff and like I had no shot at getting it. Like I pitched a Frankenstein, like a Universal Frankenstein. I had this really fucking dope take, because
Whoa.
I was in the Universal Writers Program in 2016, 17, and out of that I got to pitch on Frankenstein, but there was no chance they were gonna. In hindsight, they just did it to be nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And then,
yeah.
then when they said that um, when they passed on the pitch, they were like, they said it was a really great pitch, but it was too comic booky. And I was like, what does that even mean? Comic book is a medium. It's not a way of telling a story.
But comic books is what's selling. That's the
It's
whole
also,
point.
it was just an excuse. They knew that I was from
Yeah,
the comic book world, and so it was an easy. I mean, think about how much money movies cost to make, and jobs are on the line. So like
true.
they're very risk averse, and some new guy, you know,
True,
it's not in
true.
their interest to say yes. You know,
But Legendary's been killing it though. I have to admit that some of the books they've been doing have been pretty well,
yeah.
you know. And that's something that I kind of, I was like, man, I feel they should do some more,
Yeah,
and
they do IP stuff. So they're doing a bunch in the MonsterVerse. Still, I know they have more
yeah,
books coming out from the MonsterVerse.
yeah, that's something I think that definitely would be because right now I don't know. I mean, of course, I think horror genre is huge right now, especially like here in
Always been.
Texas.
It's
Yeah,
always
yeah, like here in Texas, they always have horror conventions,
sure.
all the time. I mean, and especially now they're trying to bring back some of the older, characters and stuff like that, and with the younger generations. But it's cool to see that a lot of the younger generations are slowly taking it in. I was at the comic book store. I had a 17-year-old come in, and she was looking for Transformers, and I'm like, okay. And so I'm starting to talk to her, and she's telling me like, "Oh, I'm looking for this," and I'm like, "G1?" And she's like, "Yeah, I want to read Skybound's Transformers and blah blah blah."
Sure.
And she goes, "I started watching the G1 Transformers." And I'm like, "Wow, a 17-year-old's watching G1 Transformers and looking for the current series Transformers." I'm like,
You know what's interesting
"Dang."
about that is like when we were kids, like we had no choice. Like Popeye was on, so even though Popeye was old ass black and white show, or like
Yeah.
Jekyll and Jekyll or whatever, like that's all we had. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Journey to the center of the earth, or like whatever it was, like Battle of the Planets. Like we didn't have many options, so like I think we watched a lot of stuff that was older than us because that was the only game in town. So it's super interesting to me that people are actually seeking out these things.
Yeah, no, that's why I was dumbfounded. I was just like, well, I was like, you know what? You're talking to the right man here. I know G1. I can point you to the right direction. But it's just weird seeing the younger generation catching on to this stuff,
Sure,
even though you think it's obsolete. And it's not. It's cool seeing them taking in
sure.
the older stuff. Um, and I feel with you doing the Godzilla King Kong, um, by any chance, I was going to ask this as well. Did you watch the Monarch stuff?
I sure did. Yeah, season one. Yeah.
So, what were your thoughts? It left me with a lot
Yeah,
of
I mean, I,
questions.
I I thought it ended very strong. I think the season was a little bit uneven. Like, it almost lost me a couple times, but I stuck it out, and I really liked the way it ended.
Yeah,
Um, I'm interested to see where they go with it. Obviously, there is a character from Monarch in the comic,
yeah,
in
yeah.
my comic.
And
Um,
the upcoming one?
yeah, 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 yeah. It's a character that originated in Legendary's comic of the MonsterVerse that people don't really know that this character originated in the comic first, in a Legendary comic first. Keep
Oh,
an eye out for that.
nice. That is,
Yeah,
see, that's what I'm talking about right there. You know, things like that. If people who really follow this stuff, they're gonna catch that. And yeah, okay, okay. I'm definitely gonna have to look forward to it now and
yeah.
see. I mean, that's pretty cool. Um, and for this series that we're gonna, is this gonna be a 5 issue series for the
7,
part? Oh,
7.
7 issue.
Yeah. The only difference is the first series was 30 pages per issue. This is going to be 24. Um,
Okay,
and I think it's because like Christian had a hard time. It's a lot of pages to have to draw, and
audience is
so like we had to bring in a second artist, obviously, in the first series, and we don't want to do that this time around. So um, yeah,
nice. That's freaking awesome. Okay, seven issue series.
yeah,
All right, sweet. And then the graphic novel, of course, guys. If you didn't know, hardcover just dropped. So go pick that up if you haven't. Picked up the single issues.
pretty good.
Yeah, no, the hardcover was nice. I like the cover you picked for the hardcover. That was
Oh, I didn't
nice.
pick it, but yeah, it was really good. That artist is awesome. That's Dan Mora. Um,
Dude, Dan Mora is everywhere, dude. He's doing
he's
Power
so good.
Rangers, doing
He's so
DC.
good. He's
Dude,
good.
I don't know
He's
how he does it.
I don't know. He's good. He's amazing. Uh,
Yeah.
did you have a favorite moment from the first series?
Man. Okay. The one thing that the canary part was the biggest thing for me. Um, but I'm a big Supergirl fan.
Okay,
So I like characters that are unique. I'm not saying unique, like X-23. I liked her before she came out in the movies. Supergirl, Harley Quinn before she blew up.
yeah,
Um, so I always like those characters that are unique in a certain way, but the way the Shazam thing was awesome too. It's just there was so much that you put into the series. It was like
yeah. I threw everything in there, man.
so okay. And then the Legion of Doom characters. That's why I said for me it was just like I was going here, here. I was just like popping around, um, and seeing the fight scenes that were in the
Sure.
comic. It was I can't pick a certain favorite part. I just the biggest one was just the whole Godzilla when him and Superman are gonna throw it down. That was like the biggest thing because I'm like, what is gonna happen? What is Superman gonna do? Um, but it was just so
But
intense.
let's set the record straight with Superman is that because I did catch some flack from Superman fans saying he should have one punched him and this and that. And first of all, when two IPs are get together, nobody wants to lose, right?
Yeah,
So you
that's
have
yeah,
that. So you have to find creative ways to create satisfying fights. And so for me, the radiation
yeah.
inherent in Godzilla made a lot of sense to me. That that could be a weakness um, for Superman. And so that I built in a reason why why
No,
it why it
that was
so.
smart. It was smart. I mean, because you think about it, he absorbs the sun, so and Godzilla's powers is just nuclear. So, or kind of, well, it is. That's what it is, pretty much.
Well,
Because
they don't really use the term nuclear anymore. I think the Japan sort of has this relationship with that
yeah,
they don't really like to talk about it, and like this. So
anymore like they used to.
yeah, so like you can't really refer to stuff like that in Godzilla too much anymore.
So then, what would you? What would the proper
It's like
power that he?
it's just like his energy. It's like energy. It's Um, there is
Radi-
there's a radiation component, and then there's like
yeah,
this energy. This, I kind of like liken it to like a life force type energy because it's like it's in Hollow Earth. You see it when you go to the temple,
yeah.
with the blue light, with the lights in the Kong's temple. Um, you know, it's almost cosmic. I don't know, like I don't know what the right verbiage is, to be honest with you. Um,
It's like going Super Saiyan for Dragon Ball Z, kind of like, and then
kind
I know it
of.
sounds.
But no, but
I
I mean, look, yeah, and it's so weird. Is like I personally never heard of power scaling until I did this book, and people started like messaging me and like on like Twitter or whatever, asking like, what level is he and how does that compare, or is this this version? And like, I had no idea what power scaling was, man. Like I never even heard of it. But people take this stuff so seriously,
no, they do.
like Omega, this, that, and World Chat Stars. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's a lot. I mean, it's some of the conversations that some people have in the comic book store are fucking phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so funny. I mean, that's another thing in
I
itself.
mean,
But
the
anyway,
reality is who would win in a fight is whoever the writer wants to win that gets approved by the people who own the IP.
yes, that's the thing. And I was so happy though because every time when you have crossovers with IPs, they always have those restrictions, and that's what I loved about what they did here. They had everything. I mean, things from the movie. There was no holding back on the DC characters that you use. You were able to use with the characters
Yeah, so I sort of had an open book. I just chose who I wanted to use, and so like the elsewhere the versions of them don't match any specific canon because I just pulled the versions that I liked. I mean, like Just League, Unlimited probably is the closest,
yeah.
but like I pulled like this is like my Christopher Reeve Superman. This is my New 52 Barry and Hal, or my more classic Batman, like cartoon Batman. Like I
Oh,
just
okay.
pulled the versions of each character that were the classic versions to me personally, you know,
Wow.
and um, I think a lot of people sort of like that and sort of missed sort of classic versions, sort of universal versions of the characters. I think that's also why it resonated because you didn't need to know any other canon. You didn't need to have ever read a comic book
Yeah.
to be able to understand what's going on. I mean, we know enough in the world to know who Batman is, who Godzilla is, so you don't need some deep knowledge of it, you know. And I just tried to sort of frame an interesting story around it. Obviously, I built it partially around like Clark asking Lois to marry him.
Yeah.
Um, and then I went and did some goofy shit, like had Toyman wish steal the Dreamstone and wish he could have those toys, and I don't want to
So
spoil the ending for people, but like I pitched this ending of when when they find finally find Toyman at the end, and I didn't think they would approve it because I thought
for real?
it was so zany. I was like, but no one stopped me, so it's in there.
Well, that's what. Okay, since you brought that up, and I thought of it in the back of my head, but I didn't. So when I saw Toyman, the first thing that popped in my head was Toyman from Smallville, because that character that they portrayed Toyman in Smallville was an awesome character. I wish they would have continued more with that character in Smallville, but when I saw that, that's what popped in my head. It was that character of Toyman, and then the Lex Luthor that I saw when I was reading the book was Lex Luthor from the cartoon series.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
was that the one that?
I
Because
mean,
that's what I took
kind of
from it.
like a cross between that and Gene Hackman.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because he's so arrogant.
Okay, yeah, because that's what I took from it, and that's why I said when I read a book, I take things differently. So that's a character I saw when I was reading my Lex, and then when I was reading, so anytime I read any Batman, I have Kevin Conroy's voice in my head.
Sure, sure.
So anytime I see Batman, that's who I have in my head. Um, but yeah, no, just the characters that you had chose for the villains were perfect. It reminded me of the Legion of Doom,
Yeah, I
and
mean I just want it to be fun. I want and part of the whole like they say up front that the real problem they always have is that they can't get along, and it plays out through the course of the story. Like they don't get
yep,
along, and
yeah,
whereas the Justice League and the heroes they work together to win.
yes, yeah, that's the thing. Okay, yeah, that's so freaking cool. I didn't know how to bring it up, and because every time because everybody interprets the stories different, and that's how I interpreted, but I wasn't too sure. But then when you started bringing stuff up, it just kind of fell into place.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but anyway, I want to thank you, Brian, for taking the time to come on.
for sure.
It was awesome talking to you about and then kind of geeking out on Smallville as well.
Mhm.
Um, so guys, if you haven't read this book, go out, get the graphic novel to get prepared for part two,
Yep.
and go watch the movies as well and Monarch as well, so you can get caught up for everything and look for those little Easter eggs as well.
Sure.
Um, but countdown, we're gonna put the links below where you can find him, follow him, see the work that he's working on, and we'll catch you next time, guys.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it.